I like to grow pole beans on this chain link fence here. Even though these beans want to get a lot taller than the fence, I just kind of let them grow along the top here and kind of decorate the top of the fence, and it seems to do pretty well, and it certainly keeps them at a manageable height for me to pick. When the pole beans, when the green beans start to come in, I check these pretty frequently, if not every day, every other day, to make sure that I pick them when they're young, so that I'll continue to get more beans. So a lot of people really aren't sure at what stage, at what size to pick beans, and it's going to vary an awful lot by the variety and the type of bean. This is a Spanish Romano type, and I think the variety is Musica. There's one called Helda. There's several varieties, and I was amazed the first time I grew these to see how big these can get. And still be tender and really delicious. These are really sweet. They're one of the best when they're growing well, but I've also found that if they get stressed, they can get tough, and you need to pick them much smaller. So, when a variety is new to me, I sometimes just let them keep growing until I can start to see the seeds inside develop, to be able to see what the potential is for how big they can get before they're too mature. So for me, a green bean is too mature when the seed inside starts to develop and swell, because then the pods will start to get tougher. Yeah, look at this. This is so beautiful and long, and it's still, you can wiggle it. It's nice and tender. And I've noticed that there's also a really subtle color change and kind of texture change when they're immature. It's kind of a darker green, and it's a little maybe silkier, and when they're starting this, just before the seed starts to swell, it turns a little bit whiter. I mean, it's obviously not really white, but a little bit lighter color and a little bit rougher on the surface too. But you can't go only by the length, because for example, down here we go, that's a good example. This just snapped off at the end. But this one, it's getting more scalloped on the edge, and you can see that the beans are starting to swell and get a little lumpy. So this one I would pick, and I don't usually use a tool. I usually can just kind of pinch these right off. And I would go ahead and pick this one. This is like, perfectly ready, but I wouldn't let it go any farther, because you're starting to see these little scallops on the edge, and I can feel that the seed inside is starting to be ready. But it's still nice and tender. It's not going to snap. It doesn't feel tough. So this one's ready to go too. But these also come in flushes, and I usually get quite a few beans that are ready to pick at a time. Even if it's more than I can eat, then maybe I'll just blanch and freeze some of them. And I keep them in a freezer bag and squeeze out the air. And, if it's a few too many each time, then, after a month, I've got a bag full of beans in the freezer, as well as eating some, pretty much every day. So.